Have you ever wondered where true power lies? It's not in the vaults or the military bases. It's in the shadows of the financial system, flowing in a river of cash so clean, it's practically invisible. If you think drug cartels are the only people who wash money, you've been watching too many movies. The real money launderers wear suits, have corner offices, and in the story I'm about to tell you, they ran the entire city from the back booth of a dive bar called The Last Call. If you are new on our channel, kindly like this video and subscribe to our channel for more interesting crime stories. This is the true story of Alistair Finch, a man who worked for the FBI for many years. His job was to find smart money crimes. But he realized the real criminals weren't outside the system, they were the system. This story is about how smart people engineered a way to make money untraceable. Alistair started by watching a normal construction company. This company kept winning big city jobs, but their prices were always too low. Alistair first thought they were just giving bribes, simple gifts of cash to officials. But the truth was much bigger. The money trail kept leading back to a man named Silas Vance. Silas wasn't a scary gangster. He just owned a few buildings and a local bar called The Last Call. He seemed nice. He helped with charity events and gave money to the kids' soccer team. He was excellent at looking boring and good. Alistair got his first real clue from a city worker named Ilara. Ilara was an accountant, and she saw all the bills. She noticed that every week, a small check, always less than $10,000, to avoid big government reports, was sent to a company called Lumen Holdings. Lumen Holdings, which was based on some faraway islands, had only one thing listed as its property: a single, old, worn-out pinball machine sitting inside Silas Vance's bar, The Last Call. Silas Vance wasn't hiding cash in the walls. He was creating fake money income using something so silly, an arcade game, that no one would ever suspect it. Ilara's information revealed the pinball game lie. The pinball machine, called Cosmic Runner, was supposed to be a huge money maker. Vance claimed that every week, this one old game brought in $60,000 to $70,000 in quarters. This huge amount of cash was written down as normal bar income. Alistair immediately saw the simple problem: $70,000 in quarters is heavier than a full refrigerator. It would take huge bags of coins. But Alistair watched the bar, and the workers never brought in or took out massive bags of money. They brought in nothing. Then, Alistair noticed the machine's power cord. It didn't plug into a simple wall socket. It went into a special metal box on the floor. Alistair used a special camera that sees heat. The box had a very strong cooling fan running all the time, and a simple pinball machine doesn't need a heavy-duty fan. Alistair suddenly understood everything. The pinball machine wasn't a game. It was a powerful secret computer. Here is how the money got washed. Silas Vance was not interested in quarters. He was interested in Bitcoin, a digital money that is hard to track. 1. The Cosmic Runner machine was a sophisticated crypto mining machine. It was running 24 hours a day, finding and creating digital money disguised as a fun arcade game. The big cooling fan was needed because crypto mining makes the machine very hot. 2. The corrupt construction company would take the dirty cash, the money they stole from the city, and buy a large amount of clean, pre-made digital money from a money service. They would then give this dirty digital monies to Silas Vance. 3. Vance's pinball server, Lumen Holdings, would wash the money. He would take the clean digital money that his machine made and sell it for real dollars. This cash was then claimed as the machine's $70,000 weekly earnings. This step made the stolen money look like normal, taxed bar profit. At the same time, the dirty digital money from the construction company was sent through a secret process that totally scrambled the ownership records, making it impossible to trace. The cleverness was in the simple disguise. It used a basic rule loophole: cash businesses are hard to track. Alistair calculated that this single pinball machine was cleaning about $3.5 million every year. Alistair had the proof, but he needed a legal paper to search Vance's bar. When he showed his boss, Agent Reynolds, all the evidence, the heat camera pictures, the weird finances, and Ilara's story, Reynolds did not help. He stopped the investigation immediately. Reynolds told Alistair that the pinball story was silly and that Alistair should look for real crime. Alistair knew something was very wrong. A good agent would not stop such a solid case. The only answer was that Reynolds was the one protecting the crime. He was the firewall. Alistair secretly investigated his own boss. It was very difficult. Reynolds was very careful. But Alistair found a suspicious detail. Reynolds had suddenly made huge payments on a luxury boat and put a lot more money into his savings than his FBI salary allowed. Alistair also learned that Reynolds often visited the last call, but only the back booth that Vance used for private talks. The conspiracy was bigger than Alistair thought. The police weren't just letting the crime happen, the FBI was helping the crime. Alistair knew he couldn't trust his own office. He had to become a secret agent. He got a tiny camera and a strong listening device. He had to break into the bar and get proof before Reynolds completely shut him down. He planned a fake accident. On a rainy Sunday night, he caused a power box failure on a street pole, making a large part of the city go dark. In the rain and darkness, Alistair quietly entered the bar through a small basement window. The bar was silent. He went straight to the back booth. He hid the tiny listening device under the seat cushion, aiming it at the table. It would record every word spoken there. Then, he went to the cosmic runner machine. He opened the power box and found a secret computer port. He plugged in a small data-collecting key. This key wouldn't send information right away, which could be caught. It would simply copy and record everything that happened on the secret server. Just as he finished, he heard the faint squeak of the back door opening. Vance was back. And he brought friends. Alistair quickly hid behind the bar counter. He heard two men sit down in the back booth. Alistair listened as the voices started talking. It was Vance, the bar owner, and Councilman Mark Heller, the politician in charge of the big city contracts. Alistair heard Vance say he was worried that Alistair was getting too close to the pinball machine secret. Heller, the politician, simply said that Reynolds had taken care of Alistair and that the city money was safe. Then, Alistair heard a terrifying new detail. They were moving the money in a different way now. The banks were asking too many questions because the amount was so clean and large. They were using a new method called the gold standard to mix the money. Alistair knew the gold standard was a secret, private company that pretended to sell expensive metal. In reality, they were used to buy and sell rare, expensive small things quickly, making the money look like it was earned from smart, legal investment trades. This method hid the money so well that even police money experts would miss it. Then, a third person entered the booth. A deep, powerful voice. Agent Reynolds. Alistair's heart hammered. Reynolds confirmed he had moved Alistair to a boring, old police case to make him quit. Then came the true horror. Reynolds said they needed $20 million cleared this week for a U.S. senator's campaign fund. This crime wasn't just a few city crooks. It was a massive political money machine, protected by Alistair's own boss. Alistair quickly slipped out the back window. He had the recordings of the voices and the data from the secret computer. He was ready to expose the truth. Alistair spent 2 days hidden in a motel room, studying the data from the cosmic runner machine. The stolen computer file told a complete, devastating story. The data logger showed long lists of digital addresses used to scramble the money, all linked to the secret company, Lumen Holdings. Hundreds of secret messages detailing how to pick up and deliver the stolen cash and how to buy the expensive objects at the gold standard. The most important file. A hidden list of who got paid. It wasn't just cash. It was a point system and a share system. The lower-level police officers and city workers received points. These points were traded for expensive things, new cars, luxury trips, and fancy houses. These items were purchased through the gold standard and labeled as safe investment profits. These people couldn't sell the items without being caught, so they were forced to keep helping the bad guys to keep their expensive new lives. The politicians and high-up FBI leaders, like Reynolds, received shares, ownership pieces, in the construction companies and the gold standard. Their personal money was completely tied to the success of the crime. The system was designed to make everyone dependent on the criminal network. Alistair knew he had to act fast. He needed to get the evidence to a trusted part of the Department of Justice, DOJ. But the digital evidence needed a real, human voice to make the case stick. The only person who could give this testimony was Ilara, the brave accountant. Alistair called Ilara from a burner phone. He told her she was in danger and that the police knew she was looking into the money. They agreed to meet in a crowded place, the Cleveland Public Library. The crowd would be their shield. Alistair sat at a big wooden table. Ilara came in, scared but determined. Alistair slid a small, anonymous black phone across the table. It was pre-programmed with one number, a secure, anonymous tip line to the DOJ's Public Integrity section. He explained that the phone contained a timed self-deletion program. She had a limited window, 90 minutes, to record her full, detailed testimony. She needed to name the firms, detail the transactions, and explain the absurdity of the pinball revenue. Her voice, her status as an inside witness, was the anchor that would sink the entire ship. Just as Ilara reached for the phone, Alistair saw him. Agent Reynolds, standing across the room by the bookshelves, talking quietly into a secret earphone. Reynolds had found them. Alistair immediately shouted for Ilara to run. He flipped the heavy table over, using it as a crash shield. Ilara ran toward the exit, holding the phone. Reynolds gave a sharp order into his earpiece. A uniformed police officer, who was waiting near the door, immediately started running toward Ilara. The city police were part of the crime. Alistair grabbed a heavy brass statue and threw it at a high bookshelf, creating a massive, noisy crash. The noise drew the police officer away from Ilara and toward Alistair. Alistair realized he couldn't survive a confrontation in the open. He had to lead the pursuit to a place of maximum leverage. He sprinted toward the administrative offices, a dense, dark labyrinth of unused desks and equipment. His target, the library server room. Alistair barreled through the administrative wing, slipping into the library's main server room. It was a massive, humming vault of technology, thousands of blinking lights, complex cable management, and the constant, intense blast of cold air that protected the delicate hardware. He slammed the heavy, reinforced door shut and frantically braced it with a steel bar he yanked from a spare rack. The lock was secure, but the door was engineered to withstand a bomb, not a man. He knew the police and Reynolds would breach it in seconds. He pressed the record button on his pocket device, ensuring the audio capture of the final confrontation. This would be his insurance, the ultimate piece of attributed evidence. The door shuddered violently under the impact of a sustained, heavy kick. Alistair's eye scanned the room, landing on the final, desperate solution, a massive bank of floor-to-ceiling uninterruptible power supplies, UPS. These were colossal batteries designed to keep the entire city's network running indefinitely during an outage. Each unit weighed hundreds of pounds, and they were the electrical heart of the entire operation. He quickly tightened his belt around the door handle, then wrapped the other end around a server rack, a temporary, flimsy lock that would slow them down by mere seconds. He moved to the UPS rack and began a furious, reckless assault, yanking and disconnecting the thick power cables that fed the batteries into the main city grid. Sparks erupted, momentarily blinding him and filling the room with the acrid, burning smell of electrical discharge. The door burst inward, the steel bar snapping from the force. Reynolds and the uniformed officer tumbled into the room. The officer, seeing the volatile display of sparking cables and Alistair seemingly vandalizing public property, raised his weapon. Reynolds, however, saw the bigger picture, the destruction of the data stream, the potential collapse of his entire illicit financial life. He grabbed a heavy, red industrial fire extinguisher and swung it with all his remaining strength, aiming directly at the exposed wiring of the nearest UPS unit. The casing of the UPS shattered, exposing the live battery cells. The atmosphere in the room changed instantly. The servers began a high-pitched, electronic shriek of alarm as they lost control of their power source. The intense air conditioning immediately shut down. A terrifying smell of ozone, sulfur, and burning copper filled the pressurized room. Alistair was creating an electrical overload that would destroy the evidence, the network, and the men pursuing him. Reynolds and the cop were momentarily paralyzed, trapped between the failing batteries and the sudden, intense heat. Alistair didn't pause. He scrambled back, blindly kicking out a complex tangle of severed Ethernet cables, tripping the uniformed officer. The officer's service weapon skittered across the anti-static floor, lost in the shadows. Reynolds, now desperate, saw the entire apparatus of his power dissolving in smoke and sparks. He launched himself at Alistair, the instinct for self-preservation replaced by the frantic need to retrieve the tape. They collided violently, falling into the dense maze of smoking cables. Alistair, fueled by pure adrenaline and moral outrage, delivered a brutal kick to Reynolds' chest, shoving him back toward the rapidly disintegrating UPS rack. Reynolds cried out, the sound swallowed by the intensifying electrical whine. The final surge of electricity, combined with the catastrophic battery failure, was instantaneous and decisive. Alistair threw himself through the now ruined doorway, escaping the blinding white light and the continuous, sickening electrical fry that signaled the end of Reynolds' corruption. He heard the heavy, final thud of Reynolds' body collapsing onto the floor just as the lights for the entire downtown district winked out. Alistair emerged into the cold, silent, pitch-black library. The air was thick with smoke, but the silence was profound. Sirens, now wailing across the blacked-out city, were not just responding to the chaos, they were responding to the catastrophic power failure he had just engineered. He had become a ghost. He was an exiled agent who had assaulted a superior, but he had accomplished his objective. He had destroyed the pinball machine's power source and recorded the confession of the man who ran the firewall. Alistair disappeared. He knew his identity was compromised and his career was over. He was now a fugitive, a rogue agent who had taken down an entire block of the city grid to make his point. But he still held the two critical pieces of evidence, the only things that mattered now. One, the data logger, still warm in his hand, containing the complete, encrypted crypto ledger, wallet chains, and communications from the Cosmic Runner server. Two, the device containing the full conversation from the last callback booth, featuring Vance, Heller, and the final, fatal encounter with Reynolds. Alistair drove to the outskirts of the city, to a small, isolated parcel service box he had established years ago for emergencies, a complete contingency against systemic failure. He carefully packaged the digital key and the audio recorder into a small, lead-lined box, ensuring the integrity of the data. The address label was simple and specific: DOJ Public Integrity Section, Independent Counsel B.M. Brenda Miller, the last line of defense he knew he could trust. He had executed the physical takedown. Now, the institutional work had to begin. He checked the burner phone he had given to Ilara one final time. A simple, untraceable text message had been received. Ilara had delivered. The human witness was secured, and the Department of Justice was officially alerted, armed with the precise details needed to secure warrants and begin the necessary arrests. Alistair quietly disposed of the burner phone, walked away from the silent, dark city, and vanished. He was an exiled agent, but he had successfully guaranteed that the truth, the detailed, ugly truth of the city's corruption, would not remain buried. The official FBI report on the incident labeled Alistair Finch a traitor, a psychologically unstable agent who, driven by paranoid theories, had gone rogue, assaulted a superior officer, and caused a massive power failure. The narrative was neat, clean, and entirely false. However, 2 weeks after the night of the blackout, the truth began its slow, inevitable emergence. The DOJ launched a massive, coordinated, and highly confidential operation. Silas Vance was arrested attempting to leave the country with millions in laundered, high-value assets. Councilman Heller was detained during a session break, charged with public corruption linked directly to the city contract fraud and the complex financial schemes. The U.S. Senator resigned abruptly, citing highly publicized health reasons. Just hours before the ledger of shareholdings, the evidence of his deep financial entanglement was made public. Agent Reynolds, severely injured in the server room, was indicted on multiple federal charges, including obstruction of justice and the conspiracy to commit money laundering, based entirely on the audio recording Alistair had made. The pinball gambit was revealed to be a sophisticated, multi-layered financial machine, a network that used a single, forgotten arcade game to generate untraceable wealth, ultimately financing a $20 million political slush fund. Alistair Finch became a phantom, his name erased from the bureau but whispered in the independent financial crime units. He proved that sometimes, the only way to expose a system that has utterly failed is to be willing to destroy your own life and career in the process. If you love our crime stories, kindly like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thank you.